Problem number one, we've already created the frequency distribution. So now what we need to do is just create a graph that will look like this. And in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the information that's in these cells here. So just click on these cells and these cells. And then I'm just going to copy that information over here so I can play around with it out of the way of all the other stuff. Now, in order to make a graph, what we need to do is basically highlight the information in these cells, and then what we need to do is we need to go insert, and what we need to do is we need to insert a chart, and we want to insert a column chart. And I think in class, we basically got about roughly as far as this. So here is our chart. Just going to move it over here a little bit, and what I'm also going to do is just move everything over here so you don't see all that other stuff and get confused. And I'm also going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see things more easily. Maybe make it a little tiny bit smaller. There we go. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to adjust the width of the bars, because as it's created right now, it's created a bar graph, which is okay for some things, but it's not okay for what we want. We want to create a histogram. So what we need to do is we need to adjust the width of the bars. Okay, so if we click on any one of the bars, and I'm just going to do a control click, I can do all kinds of cool things. I can format the series. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the gap width, so the space between the bars. I'm going to make that gap width 0. Right now it's 219%. If I slide this slider, or if I just typed in 0 here and then hit return, voila, you can see now that I've created a histogram. So formerly I had a bar graph, now I have a histogram. So that's part one of what we need to do in order to create our frequency distribution figure. The other things that we need to do is we need to add some information here about the x-axis labels and the y-axis labels. So we want to put a label here for the y-axis that says frequency, and we want to put a label down here that says something like mean RT in milliseconds or something like that. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on this icon here. It says add chart element. And what I want to do is go to axis titles, and I'll do first the horizontal axis title, and that will be, I'll spell it out in full here. So this is going to be response times, little typo there, and put this in milliseconds. Okay, that's cool. And now what I want to do is I want to add another chart title, and this time it's going to be for my y-axis, and this time it's going to just simply be frequency. Okay, and basically that's how you create a graph in Excel that would be appropriate for answering this question. Now, just so you can sort of see how this figure looks in comparison. Now, these some other things you can tweak here. You might want to make this a little bit bigger. So right now the text is kind of small, so maybe you might want to make it, I made it 14-point font, and to me do the same thing here. Make this 14-point font. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, and you should see, now the only other thing that's a little bit different between the official one that I created for the sample assignment and the one I just created now is that the bar boundaries are a little bit more clear-cut here in the one that's actually embedded in the sample assignment than they are in the one I just created. But I'll leave that as an exercise for you to play around with in terms of figuring out how to make those bars a little bit more visible. But if you just did it this way, that would be fine. It would be more than adequate. Okay, so that is how to do the graph making part of question number 1 for assignment 1.